Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being gracious. I was a few minutes late because I had a child at home who was having a hard time with me leaving. She's turning 19 tomorrow. Um, so it so here's the deal is I'm an adoptive mom of two kids from the foster care system. They moved into our home in 2011. And here we are. They're 10 months apart. As of tomorrow, they'll both be 19 for 6 weeks. That's always fun. And my babies moved in with complex developmental trauma. And I knew there was going to be trauma, but I did not know that there was going to be trauma. And so I have learned some things because as being a partner in their journey of healing, it's required me to know some stuff about myself and to stay in a compassionate mindset as much as possible, right? I don't know about you, but sometimes I get worn out and I might say to myself, either in my mind or out loud, I just can't even. Anybody? Right? Or I'm done. Or I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive down the street and I'm going to scream as loud as I can in my car by myself. I have done that many times, right? And what that is telling us is we need to feel back up, right? We need more resources. So if you think about it, there's this term that's used that sometimes people put a negative connotation onto. It's called burnout. When I say burnout, you're supposed to say sucks. I'm kidding, no. When I say burnout, what comes to mind for you? Mother. Right? Exhaustion. What else? What are the things that people attach to if someone says that they're burnt out? That they're done? They want to leave? Depressed? They don't blank enough? Maybe they just changed their mindset? Well, what's the Jesus word for crap, right? Right? Like that's not the reality, because what burnout is telling you is just like if you're driving a car, you know that little light that comes on that tells you that you need to put fuel in the car? If you're not a person who's nodding, it's because we fall into two categories. There's the people for whom that light comes on, and all of a sudden they become advanced physicists and can say, I can make it 40.6 more miles before I need to worry about it, right? Right. And then there's the people who are like, I don't know what you're talking about, because by the time it gets to quarter tank, it's already empty, right? And I don't know those people, but they always out each other. They about themselves in crowds. And what you are missing out on is the delight and joy of feeling your car sputter on fumes and then looking for a gas station furiously and frantically and white-knuckling it all the way through that intersection, hoping your car does not run out of gas through the intersection, pulling up to the pump, and that feeling of relief when you have made it. It's triumph. And you're missing out on that. Right? So when the car's fuel light comes on and says, I need fuel, is there anything wrong with the car? Nope, it's doing its job and saying, hey, you got to fill up. You don't fill up, we don't go, right? It just needs fuel. When you're experiencing symptoms of burnout, exhaustion, irritation, difficulty organizing, difficulty sleeping, eating more or less, trouble concentrating, the one everyone gets mad about, increased spending, eating, Target dollar spot, TikTok, social media, any of those things in order to make it through the day or week, right? So I just gave you a whole list of signs and symptoms of burnout. And when people see that, often some advice that is, well, you just need to take care of yourself better, right? Yes and no. It's saying, hey, if you keep trying to go forward without the fuel that you need in your tank, you're not going to be able to get where you want to go, okay? Now, we all know what to do when our car runs out of gas, right? We have a plan. We know what to do. We know who to call. We know what to do. And so it's not that big of a deal, just like for us too. It's not that big of a deal if we recognize that we're hitting the edge of our capacity and our brain and body are giving us like a sign, the light's coming on saying, fill up your car, right? But if we don't, if we keep trying to drive and we stop paying attention to the other lights that are coming on in our system, right? We're not paying attention. How many of you seen the check engine light come on? Right? Thank you for being honest. I know, does it freak you out? It freaks me out when it comes on, right? Because I'm not a mechanic and I don't know what to do, and I don't have a little tool that you plug in. And so when that check engine light comes on, it's serious. It's your car saying, you got to go to talk to somebody and figure out what's going on here. Because if you keep trying to drive, it's going to wreck something in this system. It's actually pretty serious. When we don't pay attention to our signs of burnout and we keep pushing, we're going to be using other parts of ourselves to compensate, right? And then our check engine light comes on. And it's where we get symptoms of like PTSD. Compassion fatigue is literally secondary traumatic stress disorder, right? When you think of the symptoms of PTSD, it's serious. It has a whole biological, spiritual, mental, relational impact on you. So we want to be aware of our gaslight coming on, right? And if we start to feel like things are running a little bit rough, be gracious with yourself and realize it's your brain and body doing its job to tell you it's time to fill up, right? You've all heard, what do they say when you get on a plane and the masks come down? Put yours on first, right? They generally don't say, because you won't be helpful to anyone else if you're dead. But that's the reality of it. So what do we do to make sure that we are increasing our capacity for compassion for ourselves and others? We want to make sure that we're paying attention to what we need, our whole person. Okay, so when I talk about compassion fatigue, I just want to stop there for just a second and say that the word compassion literally means to suffer with. To suffer with, right? Sympathy, I feel bad for that person. Empathy, I feel with that person. Compassion is, I'm stepping into the reality of your distress. I'm dysregulating a little bit and helping to bring you to calm. And you, caregivers, are constantly doing that. You are co-regulating not just your children, but people around you. Not to name any names, but that's what you do, right? You're a caregiver, you care. In order to care means that I'm willing to risk my calm, my peace, my reserves, and I'm going to spend that energy caring for somebody else, which comes at a cost, right? There's a reason that the word paying is in front of the word attention. It costs something, right? So if you're feeling exhausted, there's a reason. It's because it costs something. This is why having relationships is so important, because we're actually, I love this phrase, we are each other's medicine. Did you know that? We are each other's medicine. We fuel each other by paying attention, by connecting, by hearing from each other, by helping to give experiences and share experiences so that we are heard, seen, and valued, and that we know that we're not alone. Because here's the thing, if we just talked about compassion fatigue, which is secondary traumatic stress disorder. Trauma is an event or series of events or set of circumstances experienced by an individual as harmful or life-threatening that has lasting adverse effects on their functioning. Okay? Event, series of events, set of circumstances experienced by an individual is harmful or life-threatening that has lasting adverse effects. Those are the 3 E's of trauma. And what trauma tells you is that it's your fault and it's never going to end. That's the message. That's what the brain pattern is when you experience it over and over again. So when your check engine light comes on and you feel like you don't know who to call and you feel like you don't know what resources you need or what's going on, and your downstairs brain takes over that survival, it's just going to focus on surviving. It's not going to focus on the nuances of being able to attune to people, to be able to connect to people, because that's your body in isolated trauma. So by being connected and by sharing experiences and finding out more and more often how we're not alone, how we are connected, and how we can share with each other, that's medicine for each other, right? That's filling our tank and helping us to increase our compassion for ourselves and for others. Okay? Any questions so far? I know I didn't do a PowerPoint. You're all doing really good taking notes. Okay? So what I want, one of the most important things I want you to walk away with from us talking about burnout and compassion fatigue is you can be in burnout and you can be in compassion fatigue, and there is nothing wrong with you. I want you to know there's nothing wrong with you. It is your brain and body, when you're experiencing those same signs and symptoms, your brain and body is communicating something needs to adjust in my system, whether it's my internal system, whether it's in my immediate system, or the system around me. So it's giving us an indication something needs to shift. It's out of balance. Okay? So one of the things that I have found that has been really helpful for creating that intentional attention toward my whole person is the wellness compass. So everyone will see that on your table, you have a sheet that is the wellness compass. Thank you. There's our Vanna right here. There's our Vanna here. Who's the Vanna? Oh, you have 2. All right. So you're going to see that there are 4 sections and really 4 quadrants and 8 sections. Quad 4. Okay. And it looks at the heart, mind, body, and soul. And under heart, we look at the areas of healthy relationships and emotional regulation. Okay, I love that you laughed. Let's unpack that. Oh, okay. I was all like, was that about emotional regulation? I was just okay. Mind is work and learning, which I think is on there as vocation, and then organization. And we're not talking like home edit, although home edit's awesome. We're talking about how we plan and organize and structure things, okay? Body is there is strength, and that's care for body, and then stress resilience. And then soul is spirituality, and then rest and play. Isn't it interesting that rest and play is in the soul section, right? So if you think about a whole person, which you are all whole people, you have a system of these areas, and each of them speak to the balance that is in your life or areas that you might want to pay attention to. Okay? No one has 100% of all of these at all time, except we're in church, so we know the answer is always Jesus, thank you, right? Right? We're humans, and we're not going to have that. However, when we start to take a look and say, I'm noticing that I haven't been able to really fill up this one area, and I want to have more balance, or I want to be able to feel some life coming from that area, or that maybe needs to be part of my system that is being filled up. The wellness compass gives us an opportunity to look at what might I do. What might I do? So I'm going to invite you at your tables, and we only have 3. So we'll let you vote. Where's table number 1? Table number 1. Would you like heart, mind, body, or soul? I can assign it if you'd prefer. All right. Heart. Mind. Does that work? Body or soul? Soul. All right. We'll skip body. We know what to do. Right. Okay, so what you're going to do around your table is we're going to spend about 7 or 8 minutes. And with your section, you're going to look at the 2 areas in your quadrant, and someone will record it, and you're going to write down, how do we know that we are experiencing wellness in this area? What do we see? What do we experience? What does it look like when we're experiencing wellness in our relationships, in our emotional regulation, in our organization? Okay, got it? And then you tell stories. It's okay. On your mark. Get set. Share. So you're just focusing on mind, like the end word. So how did you know? Right. So, but work can be all kinds of things, right? Like in my work, I know I'm experiencing wellness when I know when my workday ends and my other activities are, or whatever. So like, Give it about 2 more minutes. And if in your discussion you've come up with things that show wellness in the other areas, you can add them. All right, 30 more seconds. Hello. All right. We're going to start coming back. You can finish those last words of wise and sage advice. All right. So one thing I want to highlight for everybody that's here is I've gone to school, I've done stuff, I've written stuff, whatever. Like, yeah, I've done stuff, I know some things, cool. You know who else has done some stuff and knows some things? All of you. All of you. You are incredibly wise people. I know that when mommy brain hits, maybe it doesn't feel that way sometimes, right? But you're incredibly wise people, and you just heard it around the table. Because I heard at every table moments of, oh, as somebody heard something from someone else in a new way that sparked something from them, right? When we share and we talk about things, it feels maybe a little mundane to talk about how do you know if you're in a healthy relationship, except we're sharing perspectives, right? And you know, as caregivers, that the ones that you were raising, the ones that you were caring for, regardless if they are wee ones or if they're 19 years old, right? Your job, in a large part, is to create enough felt safety for that brain to access the stuff that makes that person who they are, right? To provide enough calm, enough structure, enough nurture in order for them to fully develop into who they are meant to be and to access the internal wisdom that they have along with their experiences and the things that they learn, because each one of us has something that only we bring to this world. That's right, we're all snowflakes, y'all. We are all individual people who have a special way of bringing hope to people in a way that only we can, of bringing joy, of bringing light, life, of being a safe place for people to express the range of emotions. I love that. We don't have any room for toxic positivity. It is like the most socially acceptable pathology ever to ask people to pretend that hard things aren't hard. It's creating a lie, right? And the truth is that it is hard. And luckily, we know a God who doesn't leave us or forsake us in the midst of the hard things, and we hold on to that, and we get to exemplify, we get to be that example to each other of not being left alone. So when trauma comes and says, it's all your fault, it's never gonna end, you're all alone, there's something wrong with you, as humans, we get to reflect to each other, that's not true. It's not true. If you have every single thing that you need, right? Well, even if you have a lot of what you need, you can access the inside. What I was going to say was, and this, I know it's controversial, but what I'm gonna say, no one is authentically a jerk. I know you just thought of somebody. And you're like, ma'am, I'm pretty sure I know someone who is authentically a jerk. And what I will say is if a person has all of their needs met and they're not living in a state of fear or scarcity, no one's authentic self is a jerk. As soon as we have our needs met to a point when our oxygen masks are on and we have a plan and a strategy for what to do, we automatically look outward. We automatically look outward and say, all right, I have capacity right now for me. I've got this. Who can I help? And that's who we are. That's who we are, right? So when people aren't able to respond in that way, it's telling you that something's out of whack in their system. When you're not able to respond that way, it's telling you something's out of whack in your system. You don't have all the things that you need. So a way for us to take a glimpse, a snapshot of what areas in our whole person that we might want to pay some attention to is you have a packet on your table that is an assessment. And it's a parent assessment of all of those areas that you go through and you rate. Where on this spectrum do I feel I am right now? Here's the thing. There is no A, B, C, D, or F for this. This is not pass-fail. You can't flunk it. It's not a test. It is a snapshot. It's just like looking at the gas gauge on your car and saying, how full is my tank in this area? It's long. There's no way you're going to finish this in 10 minutes. So this is one of those that we'll talk about what we can do to support, because there's actually this thing called the Wellness Circle. It's a 6-week program where you get together with a small group and spend an hour a week learning about change management, how, what happens to your whole systems when you change. And there's parenting one that's specific. And you just pick one little area, one little thing in one little area, okay, that you would like to improve for that next week. And you pick that one little thing. And then you come back the next week and you're like, here's how it went, and here's what I'm going to do for the next week, right? Because this is the reason. Anybody keeping up with their New Year's resolution? No, it ended. New Year's resolution statistically lasts to January 19th, right? Because we can't do that whole transformation. We have little tiny steps, right? And so it's just an awareness of what one little thing might I change for this next space of time that can fuel, and how can I share that in healthy community? And so the cool thing is you already have this set up here where you have people that you sit around tables with, and to even come back, like what if you came back the next week and part of the conversation was, here's one thing that I decided I wanted to do this week, which is I wanted to make sure I drank 80 ounces of water 3 days a week, okay? That might be a goal for somebody. I want to make sure I'd like to go to bed 30 minutes earlier 2 nights for the week, right? Little tiny steps. I'd like to stop and do a breathing practice 4 times a day, at least once a week. Little tiny steps. And just see what things can adjust for you, and then share them in relationship, right? Because I'm going to sound like a Disney film, but the answer was in you all along. You already know what to do. You're very wise people, and you know what you need. And it just takes us sharing with each other to hear perspectives, to laugh and cry with each other, hold hope, right? Hold the whole range of human emotions, and support each other in this work of being good humans with each other and caregivers. And you got this, okay? Each one of you precious, amazing people. You are worth the time, you're worth the effort, you're worth the attention. Thank you for being who you are, awesome people. Am I done? I can keep going? Fantastic. So I'd love to know, around the tables, were there anybody who experienced one of those, oh yeah, or aha, or I hadn't thought of it that way, feelings or thoughts when someone else was sharing, or even when you were sharing and you thought of it a new way? Where should we start? Table one. On the spot.
It's okay to give yourself a timeout.
I'm going to go think about what I've done. I got into it with my about to be 19-year-old last night. And we had a whole, our fights are getting shorter, which is great. But like she's got complex developmental trauma. And COVID just flattened her progression. She was holding on. She was sort of making it. And she, of course, right in the middle of her freshman year, good old COVID came. And she has not recovered. She just hasn't recovered. And so it's been this mix of nurture, structure to try to help her on her way, knowing her challenges with attachment, knowing her challenges with relationship, knowing her fear base. So she, even yesterday, I was like, in our discussion that was really loud, that my husband was like, I'm going to bed, y'all figure this out. She said, I need to know what the schedule is every day for my anxiety, right? Right, so she's able to communicate that and to share that. And so we've left that safe space for that. But that's what her brain and body needs. That's the kind of container that her brain and body needs in order to feel safe. And so even having those spaces of saying, this is what I need to feel safe. I need to be able to say, I'm going to excuse myself and go regulate. And I have said that to her. I'm like, my family of origin, I would have beaten you up by now, which is true. It's right? We are fluent in the language in which we are raised. And so we have to learn a new language. And I'm like, so I'm going to go calm myself down so that my default doesn't come out, right? And I'm putting myself in timeout, right? And so that's part of our, we're very psychologically aware in our home. So we have these conversations, and that's part of her too, is she's like, I have to go. I'm not safe. I don't feel safe in my body. I need to do this. And to be able to articulate that to your people, without it, it's not that I've done anything, it's what she's experiencing in her body. Because remember that E word of experience in trauma? We don't know what other people are experiencing in their brain and body. And that is because their brains, their amygdala, this amazing computer you have in your brain that's kept you alive for a very long time, say thank you to your brain because you have not died yet. It's done a really good job scanning for patterns and for danger your whole life. And it puts together patterns and it says, this pattern has happened before and it was not safe. So I'm going to make sure that you're only paying attention to staying safe. And you know what goes out the door? Your prefrontal cortex is not engaged when you're in your downstairs brain, your survival brain, right? So your decision-making, your problem-solving, your emotional regulation is not online in the same way because your brain and body is just trying to keep you alive. So what we do to scaffold and to build those strategies, just like at some point, someone helped you to learn, when you see the light come on, you go to the gas station. Or when you see it at a quarter tank, you go to the gas station, right? Someone gave you a strategy, and you probably had something happen at one point where you didn't. And you're like, I don't like this outcome. I don't like how this feels. I'm not doing this again. And you put in a belief, an understanding, a pattern, a strategy of this is what I'm going to do in order not to experience that again. And for our littles, we provide that co-regulation. We provide that structure and those strategies by repeated experiences that help those brain adaptations to grow. And as adults, we're now responsible for our own change, but we can only do it with each other. Nobody can do it in a vacuum. You cannot just decide, this is why toxic positivity doesn't work. You cannot decide, I'm just gonna think a different way. Doesn't happen. You literally have to experience something in a different way over and over to form that neural pathway. And that's what changes how you respond. That's what changes your default, right? So if I can experience enough safety in relationship to be able to notice what triggers me and say, I know what I need to do in order to regulate this old pattern that's coming up. So I'm gonna excuse myself, I'm taking a time out. So I'm providing safety for me and for other people. But I could only do that because I built it in relationship. So this is, again, one of these things around the table is you can build this. You can build these capacities and practice new ways of thinking. And so when you hear someone say something about themselves that isn't true, I'm a terrible person, you get to reflect to them, that's not the truth of you, right? Here's how I experience you. I'm so dumb. I'm always late. I always screw this up. Anybody hear that? Anybody remember saying that? Right? And so you get an opportunity in relationship to say, I'm going to give you a new experience and help you know that is not the truth of you. That's a different pattern, that's a different script. Because you know that when you hear those things that says, it's your fault, something's wrong with you, it's never going to end, you're all alone, that's trauma. That's a relational disruption or a betrayal or a hurt from a past. And we have this great honor and privilege as adults to get to build those neural pathways together. So this can give you a framework of saying, here's the tangible thing that I would like to do, and then you share it in relationship and you build those new ways of experiencing life. And this is how we fill up our tank. This is how we make sure that we have enough compassion, enough fuel, so that we run out of gas less often, and we can fill up that compassion tank for ourselves and for others. So I hope that gave you some practical, tangible, hopeful things. And again, I want to just reiterate, you precious, amazing people, every single one of you, that you are perfect just as you are. You're perfect. Your system might be out of whack. All of us. Okay? So there's things that need to adjust in everybody's system, but you are amazing, each one of you. All right? You got this, moms. All right.